I'm going to switch to English because I think that a couple of attendees would like to prefer that, and we prepared in English because, our company language is English. We have people from over 30 countries working with us, so this is more like the standard how we present. Still bear with me, it's not my native language. The topic of the talk today that we were given was silence, and we thought about how can you talk about silence. But then we thought that probably it would be a good idea to talk about peace of mind and how to achieve it by meditating and by sitting in silence. And this is why we came up with this talk about calmness, clarity, and compassion, and how we at IO apply mindfulness to our company culture and collaboration. Let me start the talk with a kind of a personal story. So for 10 years, I dedicated my life to founding and growing my own software company. With a staff of 15, we were small but quite successful. We had interesting clients and we had ambitious projects. And we really were a great and very passionate team. But good things rarely last. And instead of my original plan of growing this company as my occupation for life, times got rough and it became very hard to acquire new projects. This was when I started into yoga, without any expectations, just because my sister asked me to join. While I enjoyed the stretching exercises and I noticed my body becoming more flexible and my back tension vanishing, there were two things that really struck me. One, that I could calm myself by just deepening my breath. And second, that my mind was all over the place, planning the future, reliving the past, but never in the actual moment. For me, the most strenuous pose in yoga was Shavasana, the so-called death pose, where you just lie on your back and think nothing. It was just not possible for me. Later, I learned a lot about that clearing of your mind, and Sabina will introduce you to a couple of practices for that. Back then, I first understood that I longed for calmness and clarity, and that yoga could help me get there. Same time, come in. Find a seat. There's some space over there.
That's right.
Same time.
Party crasher.
Talking about pressure.
That was a silent income.
Same time, my company crashed and I had to lay off my people, and I was really devastated. Luckily, I kind of immediately found new stuff to occupy myself and keep economically safe, freelancing as an IT consultant. But inside, I felt lost. Because deeply identifying myself with my company and really immersing myself into that, it had left room for little else. I just did not know anymore what to do with my life, as I did not have any access to my needs anymore. To move forward, I got myself professional coaching, and I got introduced to the concept of mindfulness, to regain awareness of myself and my needs. And I noticed that my yoga practices, with their calm focus on movement and breathing, training my awareness of the moment, helped me a lot in becoming more mindful with myself. So I understood that for me, practicing yoga was not only a physical exercise. It helped me with letting go of my grief and planning my new career by gaining a better understanding about what I really want to do. Now let's fast forward a couple of years to here and now, and from my personal experiences to our insights on mindfulness in a business setting. Let's start with the definition of mindfulness. It's also called present, focused consciousness. This means first that a mindful individual is not ruminating about the past or worrying about the future. They are simply being in the here and now. So please come in into the here and now.
I didn't want to interrupt, but I lost my gloves over here somewhere.
Anybody seen her gloves?
I dropped it.
The whole talk is about how to cook. So, to come back to that, the first thing is that it is not about thinking about the past and worrying about the future. It is about being in the here and now. And second, one is paying close attention to both internal and external stimuli. And third, doing this in an open, non-judgmental, and accepting way. Mindfulness is something that you don't understand by just, that you don't acquire by just understanding the concept in your brain, with your rationality. It needs to be trained by regularly practicing. The most well-known and researched mindfulness practices are meditation and its companion yoga. So why are those so useful? Because just no matter how inspiring your work or how amazing your workplace, today's professional life will wear you down. Because first, our bodies are not made for sitting for hours, responding with back and neck pain. And second, our mind is struggling with today's challenges. Volatility, uncertainty, complexity, and ambiguity. Constant change is a given, and whether you lead it or you need to adapt to it, you are prone to experience exhaustion and anxiety. At IO, we embrace mindfulness as a concept that helps our employees achieve calmness, clarity, and compassion. Focusing on one's own breath and becoming aware of your feelings instead of being overwhelmed by them calms you down. Anxiety and stress get reduced. Training this self-awareness leads to self-regulation. You are able to let go. You learn to understand and observe your emotions and then work with them. Because self-regulation goes far beyond self-control, as it is not about suppressing your emotion, it is about becoming skillful with them. This helps your mind get clarity and focus, which leads to flow, increased productivity, and enjoying your work. And you become able to extend this mindfulness to others. Increase your empathy by becoming aware of the emotions of your colleagues and peers. At IO, we want to create an environment where people can care for themselves and for others. We see that this approach helps with individual and organizational resilience, with better teamwork and collaboration, and with higher emotional intelligence in leadership. We are definitely not the first to understand the value of this concept. Well-known companies like Google, Spotify, Intel, they investigated over the last years how to support their employees in becoming more mindful. They did so because a lot of research and also the application in these companies showed that practicing mindfulness helps employees with reducing anxiety, hastening productivity, improving self-confidence, helping with decision making, and so much more. We at IO just started into this journey. We currently support the practice by offering weekly yoga, both in our Cologne and Berlin offices. And I'm also very happy that our amazing Cologne teacher, Brad, could join, and here he is. So if you have any questions about his amazing practice, just get over there. And then, since Sabina joined the company, we added weekly meditation as well. So now let me hand over to her, and Sabina will provide you with more insights into meditation in a business context.
Hello everyone, I'm Sabina, and I just started at IO about 4 months ago. So I work in advocacy and industry relations. And before I joined IO, I was really keen on looking for a company that had a focus on work-life balance. And when I saw the website from IO, the first thing that struck me was family first. That's what they put on their site. And training their employees, caring for their needs. I was like, wow, this is the kind of company I want to work for. Especially having worked in a startup with 5 people, having worked in a concern or a corporation with more than 100,000 employees, and also having worked in a company that went public. So I saw the ups and downs of the different kinds of company sizes, and I wanted something more familiar with IO. So I joined here. But it wasn't always like that. So this is smiley me about 10 years ago, and inside there was a lot going on. I had just lost my father. I was just moving apartments. I was working 2 jobs and studying at the same time. You know, I would wake up at 6 o'clock in the morning and get home at midnight. I was just managing, and all this was happening in my mind. I was super, super stressed about everything. But more importantly, since I graduated, I was really keen on making the next step in life. I wanted a real job. And I somehow expected that I would waltz out of university, just strut into Microsoft, EA Games, or Ferrero, and just manage everything. But as my ethics teacher then told me, he was like, yeah, on average, after university, you have to send out about 30 to 60 applications before someone accepts you. And he was quite right. And I sent out many, many applications. And I think my 40th application went to the company, Healing Hotels of the World. And there too, the website, guys, focus on your website, it struck me because they had a quote there which said, how much does it cost to find yourself? I was like, heck, I don't know. But they invited me for an interview, and I was keen to have a look. So here I come into this small Cologne office, drenched in light, and then these 2 yogis come towards me. They're smiling and super calm, and they're just like, welcome, have a seat, have a tea, have some water. And then they just like glanced over my CV, and they were like, so what do you do? And it was a beautiful conversation, and we really got along really well, and they were kind of talking to me with their heart, if you know what I mean. And yeah, they said, so Sabina, when do you want to join? If you want, you can start as soon as possible. But the only thing that we should tell you beforehand is that when we do our meetings, before every meeting, every single day, we meditate for 10 minutes. And I had not come across meditation in that form yet, because I had just maybe seen it in a documentary, or somebody maybe popped up with it in a word, and I was just, okay, let's give this a try. And I didn't know that I was embarking on a really, really interesting journey. So of course I went home and I started doing my research. I'm like, what is meditation? And the easiest definition I could find was to seek relaxation through a mental or physical exercise. But I found different kinds of definitions. One of them was on the literature level, being that you meditate really hard before making a decision. Or a spiritual level, that you meditate to reach a different spiritual state of enlightenment. Or on a scientific level, that you can somehow adapt your brain waves. And I was like, whoa, this is nuts. Let me give this a try. But what I somehow definitely realized was that all of these definitions had a unifying goal of bringing some sort of calm and peace to mind. So then this journey started, and I realized that they were expecting me to meditate 10 minutes before every meeting. And at the same time, I thought of this, being like, My mind is like a bad neighborhood. I don't like going there alone. And why is my boss actually expecting me to go into this neighborhood 10 minutes before each meeting? Because like every human being, you struggle with things in life. And especially when you close your eyes, all of them just seem to rush at you at the same time. I mean, I was thinking, will my landlord accept my proposal for the apartment? Oh, my bank account doesn't look so good this year. It's end of the month. And just all these things came rushing in on me. And to give you context, I created this timeline. I don't know if you guys know Google Trends. There you can actually put in a term and you can see how the interest is over time and how many people actually search for that term. And I was literally at the very beginning there, because I joined Healing Juttas around 2009. And in contrast to now, I was on the journey with a lot of other people that were just trying to explore this topic and trying to understand what this actually is and what this concept actually is. Making mindfulness a science. So what I realized was, and also which was backed up by books, that your body or your mind can't differentiate between something that's really happening or what's actually happening in your memory or your mind. Meaning if you close your eyes and you imagine your last beach holiday where you're lying in the sun and you hear the waves, you can almost feel that you're there and you feel this tingling feeling of calm and excitement. But you also know the opposite. When you think of the last embarrassing or sad situation, you feel your stomach crunch up, for instance. That is because when you think of these kind of things, your brain triggers the same kinds of hormones as if you were actually there. So anytime I would go into this stressful, down this neighborhood, I would tell my body to pretend like I was actually really there. And this is a lot of stress and strain you actually put on your body. So just imagine me, 10 minutes before a meeting, being this person, you know, having a lot of stressful thoughts and emotions taking place in that part of my brain. And then me, 10 minutes after, where I really feel like, hey, I feel much better now. So I worked at healing hotels for 3 years. The first week of meditation, I was just like, okay, I feel a bit calmer. And then after about 3 months, I was like, okay, anytime I think of this feeling, my body has this reaction. Or, why do I always react so negatively to this topic? Or why do I always get angry when my mom says this certain word? You know, so I was getting much, much more self-aware. And after 3 years of meditation, 10 minutes every single day, I suddenly had this one moment where I was sitting there and my brain was silent. There was nothing. It was just like 45 seconds of calm. And I was so excited about this that, of course, all the thoughts came back rushing in. And I just told my boss, I'm like, wow, I had calmness in my mind. I'm like, great, you're on the right track. And then the other, Elizabeth was her name, the other founder sat there, and she had been doing this for 30 years. And she was the kind of woman that would walk through IKEA just like, and I was like, okay, I need to get that kind of level of calm. So she really inspired me. So why do we need to make meditation or mindfulness a science? First of all, because it's prone to a lot of stigma. You know, when you talk about meditation, you have some sort of correlation to something mystical of some sort. But medicine went through the same. The last 1,000 years, you know, they would believe that demons would be infesting your stomach, or that cocaine would be the best solution to heal your physical ailments. And it wasn't until science came in and brought in all the research and all the backings that it became this fundamental pillar of society. Everyone has the right for medical health care to cure their body ailments. And I think mindfulness is on the right track as well. And maybe eventually mindfulness will also become a fundamental pillar. Because why only cure our body ailments if we can also cure what's going on in the mind? And this is when it comes to investments. Because mindfulness definitely is already a multi-million-dollar industry. You invest in self-help books, you go to TED Talks, you buy medication, you know, you try to find all these solutions, and you spend so much money in trying to have a bit of peace and calm and a bit of happiness in your life, especially in stressful environments. And especially when all these books tell you that meditation is one of the solutions, you realize that the only investment that you actually have there is your breath. You literally only need to breathe. Breathe for a certain amount of time to actually cure these psychological ailments that may be happening. So as I mentioned, I joined IO about 3-4 months ago, and what I found really inspiring was to have C-levels attending yoga, C-levels advocating in all hands meetings for mindfulness and talking to everybody and saying take care of your peers, raise your hand if you're not feeling well, say something if you're being anxious. We know that there's a lot going on around us, so especially in the world around us. And we realized, especially with 40% of our workforce being remote, working from across the world, meaning they have the perks of maybe being able to work at a pool or maybe at the beach if they want to, but sometimes you also just have to stay at home at your desk for the whole day. And we have to cater to that because we have to take care of our employees. So therefore, I decided to do weekly meditation on Monday right here in our accomplishments at 9 o'clock. But we also stream this out for the remotees. So on a click of a button, they can tune in and listen to the person speaking in my Headspace app so that they can also check in and then afterwards talk about how they felt and how things were going. And now we're even working on practices that we make yoga remote friendly so that also our remotees can join in and be part of this mindfulness community. So where would we be without a silence meeting without actually trying meditation? How many of you have actually done it before? If you can quickly raise your hand. Oh, great. Wonderful. So it's quite a few. So for those who haven't done it before, it's quite simple. You find a place where you can stand or sit. Make sure you're comfortable. You have to make sure that you straighten your spine and find a very comfortable spot. All I need you to do for these 2 minutes is just to focus on your breath. You breathe in through your nose and you breathe out. And I want you to basically lean back and just watch the cinema unfold. Because I know it's impossible to not have any thoughts. That's why just try to imagine like it's an actual cinema taking place. But if you dive in too deeply, try to take a popcorn break and just focus on your breath again. And just be in the moment and enjoy it. Notice the thoughts arise and gently always bring yourself back to the breath. I'll set the timer for 2 minutes and you will hear a gong when it's over. So, everyone close your eyes. Take a deep breath through your nose. Out through your mouth. Notice any sounds. Smells. Feel your body sinking into the chair or your feet on the ground. Maybe you can even feel your heartbeat. If your thoughts drift away, gently acknowledge them and focus on your breath. Gently come back to your breath if thoughts arise. come back to the present moment. Gently open your eyes. Stretch a bit. And just try to acknowledge how you feel, what was going on in your mind, if you felt a difference before and after. And you can start with 2 minutes each day, on the train, at home, before you have breakfast. And just 2 minutes a day for a couple of weeks already has a significant effect on your body and on your mind. And you can gradually increase this by 1 minute a day, and the results may be really, really gratifying. But other than that, I really look forward to hearing about your experiences. And if you have any questions, feel free to direct them to me or Jutta. And we're really, really happy to have you here today. Thank you.